your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks for joining us for a look at what's been making headlines in Alberta. Police in Calgary say multiple people have been arrested following a pro-Palestinian protest at the University of Calgary late Thursday night. In a statement, Calgary police say they were notified around 6:30 p.m. about an encampment protest on the campus, which grew to 150 protesters at its peak. After a few hours, police say they had encouraged about 60 protesters to leave. Around 11:15 p.m., police say the remaining protesters were removed by arrest, with a number of people facing charges expected to be released this weekend. Throughout the situation, police say projectiles were thrown their way, which at one point led to officers using non-lethal munitions. It was one of several protests on academic campuses in Canada and the United States in response to Israel's offensive in Gaza. 3 men living in Alberta have been charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder of Sikh activist Harpreet Singh Nijjar. The killing last June caused friction between the Canadian and Indian governments after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there was credible intelligence India may have been involved. Indian government officials denied the claim.
Through complex investigative techniques and tremendous support from the community, we were able to gather significant evidence that led us to the individuals that were responsible for this homicide. I'm here today to announce that we arrested and charged 3 individuals for first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in relation to Harpreet Nijjar's homicide. The following 3 individuals were charged for this homicide. 22-year-old Garn Brar, who's an Indian national, who was residing in Edmonton, Alberta. 22-year-old Kamalpreet Singh, who was an Indian national, who was also residing in Edmonton, Alberta. 28-year-old Garnpreet Singh, who was also an Indian national, residing in Edmonton, Alberta. We will be disseminating photos of these accused men in hopes of any information in relation to their presence in Surrey during the time of the offense.
Nearly 50% of the wildfires burning across the country are in Alberta and British Columbia, according to officials. Alberta Forestry and Parks Minister Todd Loewen says technology is also helping emergency officials to keep on top of the fires and where they are and where they may break out next.
Our fire weather monitoring system, for instance, allows Alberta wildfire staff to actively track temperature, relative humidity, precipitation, and wind direction and speed throughout the forest protection area. This helps us stay on top of wildfire danger and plan for elevated wildfire risk in certain areas. Budget 2024 also provides funding for upgrades to this fire weather monitoring system, ensuring optimal wildfire response now and for years to come.
It appears the Alberta government is backing down on its controversial Bill 20. The bill would see the provincial cabinet have the power to fire municipal councillors and mayors and interfere in elections. It would also force amendments or repeal bylaws the province did not like. The former mayor of Lethbridge, Chris Spearman, says the province is playing a dangerous game by overreaching into municipalities, and it's more beneficial when governments work together and not against each other.
When I was the mayor, we accessed federal funding to expand our industrial park. And if we didn't have that kind of access support from the federal government, we would not have been able to attract Cavendish to our city. We would not have been able to enhance and modernize our airport. There are numerous other capital projects that we were able to do.
A union boss here in Alberta has come out swinging against NDP leadership hopeful Naheed Nenshi. Ricky Brar, who is the Unifor Local 4001 president, says when Nenshi was the mayor of Calgary, he betrayed workers and therefore he will not be supporting Nenshi's leadership bid. In a statement, Brar says back in 2019, quote, Nenshie's request to the UCP government to amend the Alberta Labor Relations Code specifically to facilitate the privatization of public services by stripping away successor rights is nothing short of a betrayal. He says Mr. Nenshie's compass points to convenience rather than conviction, a concerning trait for someone who aims to lead this province, end quote. On the other side of the break, we delve into why survey data on the Alberta pension plan is not yet being released. We'll be right back. As mentioned earlier in our program, the United Conservative Party appears to be backing down on the controversial Bill 20, which in part looks into allowing the provincial government to fire municipal councillors. Our legislative reporter and correspondent for the National Post says it's not surprising this potential bill led to uproars by municipal governments. Here is Tyler Dawson with BCN's Hal Roberts.
They're saying, look, we're a third level of government. Our councillors are elected by the people of wherever, so are the mayors. We are representing their will with these bylaws we're passing. And so they're saying, well, look, so why should the provincial cabinet be allowed to put a stop to that or get rid of these people that have been chosen by local voters? So super controversial, obviously. And the provincial government has backed down to some extent. What they've said is, look, we've heard that this is controversial, and we're willing to take suggestions on amendments to the legislation. Now, the provincial government, Rick McIver, the municipal affairs minister, they have said that these are the sorts of powers they're reserving for extenuating circumstances. They're perhaps not likely to come fire Mayor Amarjeet Sohi or Mayor Jyoti Gondek because they're, more progressive politicians. They'd be looking at some sort of malfeasance and things like that. But still, you can still understand why local politicians would not be super keen on this level of scrutiny. And of course, the other side of it is the UCP, the Conservatives, are unlikely to be in power forever in the provincial legislature. So what do you do if the New Democrats come to power and all of a sudden you have a bunch of Conservative mayors butting heads with them? So super controversial. I think we're going to keep hearing about this because not only is it really interesting, but it's also just, every mayor in the province is mad about it. I don't know if there's any mayor or councillor who would support such a thing. So it's a really, really interesting sort of intergovernment dynamic. And for once, the UCP is not just fighting with Ottawa.
It's funny, you reminded me of that recall legislation that, Landon Johnston, I believe, that Calgary businessman, he ended up getting, around 75,000 signatures, a far cry from the 500,000. But he says it still sends a powerful message to Mayor Jyoti Gondek in Calgary and City Council.
Exactly. And, and that recall legislation has been used. It was used in one or two much smaller municipalities than Calgary. So that, there is sort of some of these other democratic mechanisms for removing politicians if they go too far. But of course, that's, I think, a little bit different than cabinet making that decision.
Tyler, the Alberta government is looking at overhauling our province's auto insurance program. It released 2 studies and is doing a public consultation on what Albertans are looking for when it comes to our auto insurance. What did the studies reveal?
Well, basically, they looked at what some of the options might be. And there are essentially 3 options, which are options that other provinces have. Alberta has a fully private auto insurance scheme. Quebec has a mixed private-public scheme. BC has a public scheme. I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba might have public auto insurance as well. And so this all sort of goes back to this idea that Alberta has really, really expensive auto insurance compared to other places, that it's, there's reports every once in a while saying it's, among the most expensive in the country. So this is, looking at the affordability crisis. Where can the government sort of step in to reduce expenses for people in the province? And this is one of the things they're looking at. So they've also announced a freeze on the auto insurance rate hike. I think about 3.5% will be the cap put on that. But it seems to be for good drivers, is sort of what they've hinted. So I guess we'll see perhaps what that means.
We're still awaiting survey information on the Alberta pension plan, Tyler. Reporters have been fighting via access to information legislation, but to no avail. The UCP says that Albertans would walk away with, 53% of the CPP?
That was their initial sales pitch. Yeah, last fall it must have been when they came out with that big report saying if Alberta left the CPP, took our money with us, we'd have like 53% of it, and it would be, you know, a very robust pension fund. Of course, this was super controversial. The NDP jumped all over it. Both federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre and federal Liberal Party leader Justin Trudeau have said no, please don't leave the CPP. This, you know, we're stronger together, all that sort of stuff. And the UCPs, wouldn't say they've backed off of it, but it certainly has not taken up that much of their time in the last few months because it is really controversial. You know, it's not necessarily a massive vote getter or winner, but there's been this attempt by reporters to get, you know, basically more information. What information is the government receiving from Albertans, and what are they doing with that information? And it's just they haven't released this stuff. There's various exceptions. We don't need to get into access to information law, but there's all these exceptions the government can use to not release information. And that's sort of where they've been going with this. And they've said that they can't find some of this stuff. And it's just a whole mess. And it really makes it look like the government's hiding something when in fact that data and that information might not really be all that interesting. It's one of the, you never know until you get that sheaf of documents on your desk and go through it. It could be a great story or it could be absolutely nothing.
Up next, is mining steel better for the environment than mining coal? Well, a couple in Alberta's Crow's Nest Pass think so, and they're advocating for it through the reopening of an abandoned mine. We have that right after the break. Welcome back. Over the past several years, we've heard a lot about the cons of coal mining, but are there some pros? My next guests share an interesting perspective. They are part of a group called Citizens Supportive of Crow's Nest Coal, and they're advocating for the reopening of the abandoned Grassy Mountain coal mine in the Crow's Nest Pass, but for the purpose of mining the much-needed commodity of steel. Take a look.
So we're a nonprofit organization that supports metallurgical coal mining in our area. We're made up of local citizens, and we think that with responsible mining and modern mining techniques that we can mine our resources responsibly and our town could benefit from it. So we live in the area. We love the area. We wouldn't want to see anything bad happen to it. My grandkids swim in the rivers, and so yeah, we're supportive. We think we can do it responsibly.
Okay, interesting. So I believe you want viewers to understand that you're not planning on developing a whole new coal mine, right? But rather just restarting an abandoned coal mine?
Right. Grassy Mountain was abandoned about 60 years ago, and it never ever did get reclaimed. So our hopes is we can mine what's left of the met coal there. Met coal is used for making steel. And if we can do that responsibly, it will actually get reclaimed.
Okay, well, I believe we have some drone footage of the actual abandoned coal mine, and I think that this might help viewers get a better idea of what the situation is out there, but maybe talk a little bit about Grassy Mine.
Yeah, so it's not pristine wilderness by no means. Like I say, it's an old coal mine, and it holds world class, some of the best metallurgical coal in the world, and if they mine it, the company that mines it is responsible for doing the reclamation, so it would get cleaned up, and then that land would become usable again.
Okay, and also this isn't a thermal coal mine for use for fuel, right? But a metallurgical coal, like you said, to be used to produce steel. So why is this an important difference, Carmen?
There's two completely different uses for metallurgical coal, or steel-making coal is what it's commonly referred to as, and thermal coal. Thermal coal is used for fuel. It's used for generating power. Metallurgical coal, as Carmen has stated, is used for making steel. And one of the biggest differences is that with thermal coal or energy producing coal, there's alternatives. There's natural gas, there's solar, there's wind power. For making steel, there really is no alternative. Metallurgical coal needs to be mixed with iron ore to create steel, and the demand for world steel is only going up, and the supply of metallurgical coal is going down. So you could see a problem coming. So we support this on those bases and on the basis of the reclamation and the benefits to the community.
Mm-hmm. And there will certainly be obviously some questions raised as to what kind of impact it will have on the water supply and carbon emissions. So how would you address those concerns?
So the government sets the standards on what's allowable, and anything outside those standards gets shut down, right? So they have to mine it responsibly. And today we're global leaders in resource extraction in Canada, in Alberta, right? So it's better, like Troy was saying, we need the met coal. It's better that we get it from here versus somewhere else where they don't have those environmental standards. I read an article the other day about kids mining coal in Iran. It's heartbreaking, right? When you think about that, and the need for the met coal is it's there. It's going to come from somewhere. So why don't we do it where we can do it responsibly?
So one angle that your website brings up is that our neighbors to the west, British Columbia, produce far, far more coal than Alberta does.
They sure do. They are blessed with high quality metallurgical coal as well. And the deposits are very similar, and it's one of the top 5 in the world. So it is a very high quality burning coal for making steel. And they're just on the other side of the continental divide here, and they can do it responsibly. And they've shown that. And of course, they're always improving technologies. And there's no reason why in Alberta we can't be benefiting from this as well.
Alberta hasn't always just been a place for mining, but also some unique discoveries. In fact, for years, it's been a world-renowned hotbed for the discovery of dinosaur bones. We dig into that next. When some people think of Alberta, it's not always just oil, gas, and the Rocky Mountains that come to mind. How about dinosaurs? The province has more than its fair share of reptilian bones, and if you've ever been to Drumheller, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And as the curator of dinosaurs at the renowned Royal Tyrrell Museum, Don Henderson has a unique perspective on the rich history of dinosaur discovery in Alberta. Here he is with where they are and what types they're still discovering.
We are the best place in the world for the horned dinosaurs, so things like Triceratops and its relatives. More than half of all the known kinds are from this province alone. We've got 5 kinds of tyrannosaur. We've got all sorts of duckbill dinosaurs. We've got armored dinosaurs. The things we don't have are the long-necked sauropods and the stegosaurs, the things with the plates on their backs. Our rocks are too young for stegosaurs, and our ancient environments weren't good for the giant sauropods. They were still around in the United States, but they never got this far north.
That's so interesting. So is there a particular, it's like basically, I'm just kind of wondering, is there a scientific reason behind the abundance of certain types of dinosaur fossils in Alberta?
I think it's so different types of animals prefer to live in different types of habitats. Some habitats are good for preserving things and others are terrible. Like you won't get things in the mountains. Things from deserts aren't very common. Things living right along the shore get bashed up by the waves and lost. But our dinosaurs seem to live on a broad plain to the east of the rising mountains. And it was a good place to be a dinosaur. There was lots of rivers, lots of water, lots of food. And when they died and got into the rivers, they had a really good chance of being buried in sands and muds and staying buried. So it's
hence all the discoveries.
Yeah, and also our climate, extreme freeze thaw, like right now, breaks up rock. Our flash, thunderstorms and really hard rain wear down the rocks. So our climate also really makes it possible to have all these dinosaurs being exposed so often. We can go back to a place like Dinosaur Park every summer and find new stuff that's constantly washing out.
So, what were some of the earliest dinosaur fossils found in Alberta, and who discovered them?
The earliest written report we have is from 1871. There was a missionary type guy, Jean Leroux. He was showing dinosaur bones by the Piegan tribe just north of Dinosaur Park. And then he didn't say what they were, he just said there were these big bones in the ground. And then in 1874, or was it 1870? No, 1873, when they were surveying the 49th parallel, they had their surveyors and the crews marking the border, but they also had a scientist, George Dawson, and he would leave the party and go and survey. And he found dinosaur bones, 1874, I think, near Comrie. He was the best person for the job because he was interested in everything: plants, animals, culture, like the natives, and the rocks and the fossils. So he was the first scientist to really see them. And then, not like a couple of years later, the Geological Survey of Canada started sending people across the West looking for resources like coal and minerals and stuff. And so their geologists, with their better educations, they started finding stuff like at Scabby Butte. Several people went there. And then Joseph Tyrrell found Tyrannosaur bones just near Drumheller in 1884.
Is Drumheller the most significant spot in the province to find it? I know there is a spot kind of down here in southern Alberta as well, like close to the border. But
I think the best place is Dinosaur Provincial Park, just north of Brooks. So that's where we get the most. We do have lots of bone up here, but they always tend to be broken up and not as good quality. There are lots of dinosaurs here, but it's very rare to find good ones. And I think when the first professional collectors came through here just over 100 years ago, they skimmed all the good stuff. And now we have to wait a few hundred years for erosion to expose it. But I think if you're going to go anywhere to look, Dinosaur Provincial Park is the best. But it's a protected area, so not just anybody can go in.
Up next, summer is around the corner, and that means it's time to start thinking about our annual festivals. After the break, we tell you what's in store for this year's Whoop Up Days. As part of Mental Health Awareness Month, members of Woods Homes and the City of Lethbridge painted a unique new crosswalk. Shauna Cohen, Regional Associate Director for Woods Homes, says the goal is to raise awareness among our youth and their families and to let them know they're not alone in their journey. She says they want people to know that there are resources available in the community for those struggling with mental health issues.
Mental health affects everyone, whether it's directly or indirectly, and there's still such negative stigma attached to it. So it's really important just to get the conversation started, get it out there that mental health matters and it's important to talk about early on and get some early intervention and prevention strategies.
With the painting of the crosswalk, officials at Woods Homes say they are hoping to make a big splash, letting community members know that mental health matters. As we get geared up for the warmer weather and change of season, it's the time to start thinking about summer festivals. And as usual, Whoop Up Days will be celebrating summer by showcasing Southern Alberta in 2024. The Lethbridge and District Pro Rodeo and extensive Indigenous programming highlight this year's event.
And by doing this, we were able to accommodate all of those things.
Really, since January, we've been going hard on trying to get our lineup, entertainment, attractions, everything in order. Our team has been working like crazy to try to get everything done, and we've been thrilled with what we've been able to pull together. The musical entertainment that we're able to add again this year, the new rides from West Coast Amusement Midway, the new Family Fun Zone. We have all kinds of new things that we're introducing.
And Whoop Up Days takes place August 20th through the 24th with paid admission this year. Meanwhile, Kim Gallucci, Executive Director of Lethbridge District and Exhibition, discussed the group's deficit as we head into festival season. City officials say that deficit is now over $750,000 as of March 31st. This is up from just over 341,000 reported at the end of February. He says assistance from the city has helped immensely.
Well, definitely with the city's assistance, things are really shaping up. We're on the right track. The revenues are up. We're generating more than we anticipated initially. We're starting to streamline our costs. We're able to invest in some areas that you probably saw. We started to redo the parking lot, actually put lines in so people can know where to park, and really fix some of the holes. There's some holes, and make it a great place to come, stop, and visit. We're going to be doing a number of other initiatives to try incorporate other pieces. So the city has really stepped up to make it a very operational venue.
Gallucci says events like Whip Up Days and the Agri-Food Innovation Expo coming to Lethbridge in November will help bring in more revenue for his group, which will help them get a little closer to black. The city of Lethbridge is looking into potential bidding for the 2026 Scotties Tournament of Hearts. The Lethbridge Curling Club was looking for a letter of support and $400,000 in financial aid to bid for this prestigious curling event. City Council voted to allocate $330,000 from the Municipal Revenue Stabilization Reserve and $70,000 from the city's major event hosting grant to help with the bid. Is comedy becoming a dying art these days, or is it just changing? Many comedians are finding it a challenge to the point where they cannot tell the kinds of jokes they used to because of having to be politically correct. Some say because of wokeism, it's harder to write comedic material now as more people are easily offended. Jerry Seinfeld recently spoke out against this cancel culture of comedians, and Lethbridge comedian Johnny Pogo says he knows of comedy troupes who are no longer allowed to perform at certain venues.
And I think that's a little crazy because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't like a joke that a comic is making, it's as simple as not watching that comedian. I mean, not every comedian is for every person out there. You have some softer comedians that will do the woke material, that will pander to an audience that doesn't want to hear anything rough, and you'll have some comedians that will make you kind of, you know, grit your teeth together and think, I don't know about that one. But at the end of the day, I mean, we should have that freedom of speech, and we should be allowed to practice our craft without fear of repercussions of people coming down on you for because they're offended. And as Ricky Gervais says, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
Pogo says some venues, such as universities, don't even book comics anymore. And he's also been seeing a big shift in private party bookings and more requests for politically correct material. Still to come, it's a very special weekend, so we talk about the importance of mom as we head into her special day. We'll be right back.